I never expected my junior year to start with a dead phone, a missing backpack, and a janitor who swore he saw someone following me after school. I moved to northeastern Ohio halfway through the semester, right when everyone already settled into their friend groups. My new high school wasn't old, but it had that weird mix of fluorescent lights, 2 long hallways, and a basement no one really talked about unless they were joking. It felt harmless the first few days, just awkward. But something wasn't right about the East Wing. It always smelled like dust and cold metal, even when the heaters were blasting. And whenever I walked through it, the motion sensor lights flickered like something kept moving just behind me. On my 4th day, I stayed late in the school library to finish an English project. When I went to grab my backpack from the cubbies by the exit, it wasn't there. I thought maybe I forgot it in the cafeteria or a classroom, but I knew exactly where I left it. I asked the librarian, and she checked the cameras. She shook her head at the footage and said, "Looks like the camera froze for a bit. Try checking the lost and found." I didn't think too hard about it at first. Schools lose stuff all the time. A missing backpack wasn't some horror movie moment. But when I got to the lost and found room, the door was cracked open even though it had a keypad lock. The lights inside were off. I poked my head in and flicked the switch, looking for my bag. There was clutter everywhere. Old lunchboxes, books, a few jackets. Then I spotted my backpack in the far corner, tipped on its side like someone tossed it. Nothing was missing inside, except my house keys. That's when I started getting uneasy. I asked the janitor working that night if anyone turned in keys. He was a tall, older guy named Willis. He laughed and said, "Kids lose everything. They'll show up." But when I told him the keys were inside a backpack that went missing only hours earlier, his smile faded. "You sure you didn't give them to a friend?" he asked. "I don't have any friends here yet," I said. He gave me this look, half concerned, half trying not to freak me out, and walked me to the exit. Before I stepped outside, he put a hand up and said, "Hold up. Just stay here a second." He opened the door slowly and scanned the parking lot like he was looking for someone. When he finally let me leave, he kept watching behind me as I walked away. I chalked it up to him being cautious. But that night, around 11 p.m., someone knocked on our front door. My mom was asleep and my stepdad worked nights, so it was just me. I didn't open it, obviously, but I peeked through the peephole. No one was there, not even a car. I thought it was kids messing around. The next morning at school, Willis stopped me again. He looked tired, like he barely slept. "You walked home alone yesterday, right?" he asked. "Yeah, why?" He scratched his beard and said, "Just stay out of the East Wing after dark. That part of the building, it's not supposed to have power at night." I said okay, but inside my head I was thinking he had to be overreacting. That whole building had weird power issues. That afternoon, though, things went from weird to unsettling. During 7th period study hall, the principal came over the loudspeaker and asked teachers to check their classrooms for any students not accounted for. Everyone glanced around. No one was missing. Rumors started spreading that a girl from the sophomore class disappeared from the East Wing restroom. By the end of the day, police were walking around the parking lot. They wouldn't say much, just that she may have walked off school property. Nobody believed that. The girl's phone was found on the restroom floor, screen cracked. I didn't want to walk home alone, so I waited inside near the main office until almost everyone cleared out. When I finally stepped outside, the wind was sharp and cold, blowing leaves across the pavement. I pulled my hoodie tighter and started walking down the sidewalk toward the main intersection. That's when I heard someone behind me call, "Hey, hold up." I turned. It was Willis again. He jogged up, catching his breath. "You live that way, right?" he asked, pointing down the street. "Yeah. I'll walk with you part of the way," he said. "Just for tonight." It wasn't a suggestion, but he wasn't creepy. He genuinely looked worried. We walked in silence for about 3 minutes when he finally said, "There's been stuff happening at the school for years. Things go missing. People swear they hear footsteps in empty parts of the building. Doors open that shouldn't. But this, kids disappearing, this is new." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell him he had the wrong kid, that I didn't know anything. But then he added, "Your backpack didn't just get moved. Someone took it, and they were watching to see if you'd come looking." My body tensed. "How do you know that?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he said, "If anything weird happens tonight, don't answer the door." My stomach dropped. We reached the corner where he turned back, and I kept going. My house was 2 blocks away. I started walking faster than normal. When I turned onto my street, every porch light was off except ours. The neighborhood was dead quiet. But halfway up my driveway, I noticed something near the base of our front door. My house keys, just sitting there on the welcome mat. I picked them up and instantly backed away from the door. Someone had put them there. Someone who knew exactly which house was mine. I sprinted around the side of the house and banged on my neighbor's door until they let me in so I could call my mom. She came home early, checked every room, and made sure nothing looked disturbed. She told me maybe I dropped the keys at school and someone nice returned them. But the look in her eyes gave away that even she wasn't buying that. That night, around 2 a.m., something woke me up. A sound. Not loud. Just scratching, like fingernails dragging against wood. It was coming from my window. Slow. Deliberate. Almost like someone wanted me to wake up. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the curtains as the scratching continued in a long, drawn-out pattern. Then it stopped. A single thud hit the glass, like a palm slapping it. I whispered my mom's name, but she didn't answer. I slowly slipped out of bed, crawled to the hallway, and ran into her room. She woke up angry at first, but once she saw my face, she grabbed her phone and called the police. They checked outside. No footprints. No signs of someone trying to break in. The officer said it might have been a branch blowing in the wind. There were no trees near my window. I barely slept the next day in school. Every hallway felt too long. Every sound felt closer than it was. Willis found me at lunch and asked if I was okay. Someone was at my window, I said quietly. He stared at me for a long time, then nodded like he expected that answer. Do you want to know the truth? He asked. I said yes, even though I didn't. He leaned in and said, the girl who disappeared yesterday, she reported someone watching her house last week. Same thing happened to another student 2 years ago. Same East Wing restroom. We found his binder in the ceiling tiles, but the kid was never found. They blamed runaway cases. I don't believe it. I swallowed hard. What does that have to do with me? He hesitated, then said, because I saw the same figure following you on camera in the East Wing. Tall, hood pulled tight, face covered, always a few feet behind you. But whenever you turned, he'd be gone. And when we checked the footage again, he wasn't on the playback. A chill ran down my entire body. How is that possible? He shook his head. I don't know. But whatever's happening, it didn't start with you, and it won't end with you. Just stay where people are. Don't walk home alone. And if you ever see someone standing in the hallway, too still, don't look back twice. That night, I didn't sleep at all. But around 3 a.m., I heard it again. That slow, deliberate scratching on my window. And this time, something whispered my name through the glass. Something that sounded nothing like a person. I don't like talking about this night, but every time I close my eyes, I'm right back in that hallway, standing in front of the window where she waited for me. I didn't believe in ghosts, spirits, jinn, anything supernatural. I always thought fear came from inside the mind, not from the world around us. But that changed when I saw the girl who never blinked. It happened 2 years ago when I shifted into a new apartment complex. It was one of those tall, quiet buildings on the edge of the city, cheap rent, plain walls, no extras. The kind of place where people mind their business and keep their doors shut. I liked the silence, or at least I thought I did. My routine was simple. Home from work around 10 at night, walk through the long gray hallway, unlock my door, sleep. That's it. Nothing strange ever happened during the first week. But on the 8th night, everything changed. I remember walking down the hallway and noticing a slight draft, like a cold breeze moving right past my feet. I looked up, confused, because the windows in the hallway were supposed to stay locked. As I approached the one near my apartment, I saw a silhouette, a small figure standing directly in front of the glass. At first, I thought it was a child staring outside. Maybe she couldn't sleep. Maybe she lived on the same floor as me. Kids do weird things. But something felt off. She wasn't moving, not even swaying, not even breathing, as far as I could tell. I slowed down, studying her from a distance. Long black hair, bare feet, a loose, old-fashioned dress, not the type kids wear now. She stood completely still, eyes fixed on something outside the window. I couldn't see her face yet, and honestly, I didn't want to. I cleared my throat and said, "Hey, you okay? Where are your parents?" No answer. I walked closer until I was about 10 steps away, and that's when I realized something wasn't right. Her arms hung unnaturally straight at her sides. The dress looked wet. The wind blowing from the window wasn't from outside. It felt like it was coming through her, like she was generating the cold. My heart started beating faster, but I kept moving. It felt wrong to leave a child alone like this, especially so late at night. I tried again. Do you need help? Still nothing. When I reached the window, she finally turned her head, agonizingly slow, like her neck was stiff. And when her face faced mine, my breath stopped. Her eyes were wide open, too wide. The whites were bright, almost glowing, and her pupils were small, like pinpoints. But the worst part? She wasn't blinking. Not once. Her skin was pale and smooth, like there was no blood underneath. Her lips were slightly parted, but I couldn't see her breathing. Do you live here? I whispered, my throat tightening. She stared at me without moving a muscle. I took a step back. Her eyes followed me, but her head didn't move this time. Only the eyes slid sideways, and they didn't blink. I felt something crawl up my spine like icy fingers. I turned, walked to my apartment door, unlocked it with shaking hands, and stepped inside. Before closing the door, I looked back one last time. She was still staring at me. I shut the door quickly and leaned against it, trying to calm myself. Maybe she was sick. Maybe she had sleepwalking issues. Maybe there was a logical explanation. But deep down, I knew what I saw wasn't normal. For the next 3 nights, she appeared at the same exact spot, same exact position, same exact expression. Every night at the same time, just before I reached my door. She didn't move until I tried to walk past her. And every single time, her head turned slowly toward me, eyes wide, never blinking. I told myself she wasn't real. I told myself it was my imagination. But on the 4th night, something happened that removed every doubt from my mind. I rushed home after work, hoping I'd reach before she appeared. I kept glancing down the hallway, praying she wouldn't show up. But when I turned the corner, she was already there, waiting at the window. I stopped walking. My knees felt weak. She didn't turn this time. She whispered. So cold. The voice wasn't like a child's. It was layered, like 2 voices speaking at once, one raspy, the other distant. I froze in place. She whispered again, cold inside. I took a step back. Her hand slowly rose, pointing directly at me, finger trembling slightly. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But something held me in place. Curiosity. Fear. Shock. I don't know. Then she pressed her forehead against the glass. Her skin left no foggy breath mark. No breath at all. She whispered again. Help me. My chest tightened. I finally forced myself to move, walking backward toward the stairs instead of my door. I didn't take my eyes off her. Her hand scratched the glass gently, leaving thin marks. When I reached the staircase, she suddenly dropped her hand and stood straight. Her head cocked to the side like she heard something. I turned and ran downstairs without looking back. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I couldn't think of anything except her voice. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, but the scratches on the hallway window were still there the next morning when I left for work. On the 7th night, everything reached its peak. I came home later than usual, closer to midnight. The hallway was darker than normal. One of the lights was flickering. The whole floor felt cold, colder than outside, and I could see my breath as I exhaled. She was there again. But this time, she wasn't at the window. She was standing right in front of my apartment door, her back facing me, her hair draped over her shoulders, her feet pointed inward, like she had been waiting for hours. I froze halfway down the hallway. My mind screamed at me to leave, to run, to call someone, anyone. But fear glued me in place. She slowly turned around. The same wide eyes. The same unblinking stare. But now her skin looked cracked, like dry paint. Her lips trembled. I whispered, "What do you want from me?" Her mouth opened wider than humanly possible, stretching into an unnatural shape. Then she said one sentence that made my legs give out beneath me. "You left me in the water." I dropped to my knees. I had never seen her in my life. I had never hurt a child. I had never left anyone anywhere. She stepped toward me. Each step made a faint cracking noise, like bones shifting. I scrambled back on the floor. "I don't know you. I didn't leave anyone." She crouched down just a few feet away from me, neck tilting farther than it should. Her eyes didn't move from mine. She whispered again, "You left me in the water." I shut my eyes and screamed. When I opened them again, she was gone. Just gone. The hallway was empty. The cold disappeared. The air felt normal again. My door was just a door. No scratches. No cracks. No sign she had ever been there. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I haven't slept properly since. Because sometimes, late at night, when everything is silent and still, I hear a faint whisper echoing inside my head. So cold. And I know she's not done with me. I'm not the type of person who gets scared easily. I grew up in a noisy neighborhood, learned to sleep through the sound of sirens and arguments, and never believed in anything supernatural. But this story isn't about what I believed. It's about what happened whether I accepted it or not. It started when I moved into my cousin's old house. He had left the country and asked me to stay there for a few months just to look after the place. It was a quiet, ordinary house on the edge of our town, surrounded by empty plots and half-built buildings. Nothing unusual, nothing strange, just an old place with creaky floors and heavy wooden doors. Except for one room, the storeroom at the end of the hallway on the first floor. From the outside, it looked normal, just a small wooden door with a rusty handle. But the first thing I noticed was that it never stayed closed. Every time I walked upstairs, that door stood slightly open, no matter how many times I shut it. At first, I thought it was the weak latch. Older doors sometimes reopen if they don't catch properly. I didn't give it much thought. I would close it, walk away, and the next morning it would be open again. A simple annoyance, nothing more. It was the fourth night when things changed. I was heading upstairs to sleep, already exhausted from a long day of work. As I reached the hallway, I saw the door wide open. Not slightly this time. Fully open, like someone had pushed it from inside. Something about the darkness inside the room made me stop. It wasn't regular darkness. It looked thicker, denser, like the light from the hallway couldn't enter. I took a breath and said out loud, "Seriously?" I walked to the door, put my hand on the handle, and pulled it shut. As I turned around, I heard something. A soft sound, like someone tapping a fingernail against wood. Tap, tap, tap. From inside the room I had just closed. I froze. For a moment, I thought it was just the wood settling. Maybe the house was shifting. Old houses make strange noises. But this didn't sound random. It sounded slow, steady, intentional. I placed my ear against the door. Silence. I stepped back, exhaled, and walked to my bedroom. Maybe I imagined the tapping. Maybe stress was finally getting to me. But in the middle of the night, something woke me. A single sound. Creak. The sound of a door slowly opening. I sat up in bed. My heart started pounding. I listened carefully. For a second, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard it again, wood scraping softly against the floor. I swung my legs out of bed and walked to the hallway. The storeroom door was open. Not wide this time, just enough to show a sliver of the darkness inside. I swallowed hard. The air around it seemed colder than the rest of the house. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Maybe the floor was uneven. Maybe wind pressure from the windows caused it. Except all the windows were closed, and the air inside the house was completely still. I closed the door again, this time pushing harder until I heard the latch click. Then I dragged a small table from the living room and placed it right in front of the door. If it opened during the night, the table would fall and make noise. That made me feel a bit better. Until the next morning. I woke up to the sound of wood hitting the floor. My heart jumped into my throat. I ran upstairs and saw the hallway table lying sideways on the ground. The storeroom door was open, wide. I stepped back slowly, trying to understand how a table placed directly in front of a door had fallen if the door didn't push it. There was no space for someone to squeeze through. No one else had a key to the house. My cousin lived abroad. The neighbors barely talked to anyone. I walked toward the open doorway. A faint smell drifted out. Damp wood. Dust. Something else I couldn't identify. Cold air brushed against my arm like fingers sliding past my skin. I switched on the hallway light to see inside, but the darkness inside the room swallowed it. Like the light wasn't strong enough. Like the room was deeper than it should be. I didn't go inside. Not then. I went downstairs, grabbed my phone, and called my cousin. "Does the storeroom door stay open?" I asked. There was a long pause before he replied. "It does that sometimes." "Why?" Another pause. Longer this time. Then he said, quietly, "Just keep it closed. Don't store anything there. And don't go inside after dark." That was all he said. He quickly changed the topic like he didn't want to talk about it. The rest of the day, I kept thinking about what he meant. Don't go inside after dark. Why would he say that? By evening, the house felt different. Like the silence wasn't normal silence. Like something was waiting, watching, breathing just outside my vision. I walked upstairs to check the storeroom. The door was closed. I hadn't closed it. I stepped closer, my heart echoing in my chest. I placed my hand against the door. Cold. Not cool. Actually cold, like metal left in a freezer. I pulled my hand away. For the first time since I moved in, I felt a genuine sense of dread. That night, I couldn't sleep. Even with my bedroom door locked, I kept hearing small noises from the hallway. Light tapping, faint creaks, tiny movements. None loud enough to be sure, but too frequent to ignore. Around 3 a.m., I heard something that made every hair on my body stand. A whisper. Low. Breathless. Right outside my bedroom door. I sat up slowly and held my breath. Another whisper. I couldn't understand the words, but it sounded like someone murmuring in a tone too soft to identify. I stared at the bottom gap of my door, expecting to see shadows move. Nothing. But the whispering continued, circling the hallway. I didn't open the door that night. I waited until sunrise before stepping outside. The storeroom door was open again. Wide open. I walked toward it, every step heavy. This time, I couldn't shake the feeling that the room was expecting me, calling me, drawing me closer with every breath. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The cold hit me instantly. Not normal cold, freezing, like walking into a refrigerator. The room was small and empty except for one thing lying in the corner. An old wooden chair. Broken legs. Rope marks on the armrests. The wood looked scratched. I stepped closer. Something was carved into the seat. Not letters. Fingernail marks. Deep ones. The kind that only come from someone digging with force. A shiver ran down my spine. I touched the marks lightly. The wood felt strange. Warmer than the rest of the room. I backed away. My breathing grew faster. I wanted to run. To leave. To get out of that house as fast as possible. But my legs wouldn't move. Behind me, I heard something shift. Very slowly. I forced myself to turn. The storeroom door was closing. Not fast. Slowly. Like someone was pushing it from outside. My voice got stuck in my throat. I sprinted to the door, slammed my shoulder against it, and forced it open before it could lock me in. I stumbled into the hallway, gasping for air. The door stayed half open, as if watching me. I didn't stay another night. I packed my bags and left the house before sunset. I told my cousin I couldn't stay there anymore. He didn't argue. He didn't ask why. He only said one thing before ending the call. I told you not to go inside after dark. Even now, months later, I sometimes dream about the storeroom. About the chair. About the marks. About the whispering outside my door. And every time I wake up, I swear I hear a door slowly creaking open somewhere in the house.